Hello, this is Denver Riddle, your host from Color Grading Central. We've reached the end of line on our looks building, but the fun isn't over. I'll be covering in this video tutorial stylized looks. Stylized looks are the most extreme in terms of looks and are most often associated with music videos, commercials, and fashion magazines. They're the most exciting part of color grading, where you can just let your imagination run wild. Push the looks to extreme and then dial them back to taste. Now, I won't be actually creating any stylized looks in this tutorial, as creating stylized looks takes a lot of time and goes beyond the scope of this video tutorial, but I will be covering some really important information on creating stylized looks, so stay tuned. I'll also be demonstrating for you some of my stylized looks from my Luster Grades preset pack, as hopefully this will give you some ideas. So let me share with you my methodical approach to creating stylized looks, some other helpful tips, and serve up some tasty looks from my Luster Grades preset pack. Let's first start with my suggested order for creating stylized looks. The first is to identify a color scheme. Is it a monochromatic color scheme, a split complementary, or a triadic color scheme? Now, I know this is getting into color theory, and I can tell you that the study of color theory can greatly benefit your grading. I won't be covering color theory in any of the free tutorials, but I do cover color theory in my paid membership tutorials. So if that's something that's an interest to you, then become a member of Color Grading Central. Next is to create an overall look around a base color. So you've already picked by this point your color scheme. Now just pick the base color in your shot that you want to build the color scheme around. A helpful resource for this is the free color scheme designer at colorschemedesigner.com. Here you pick your base color and choose a color scheme. There's also a lot of other helpful features here, so if you like this tool, I suggest making a donation to the author. Next is to use your secondary or isolation tools to either perpetuate the color scheme further or perform an isolated correction on an object or item of clothing that's just not jiving with your color scheme. Doing this, you'll be playing the role of set designer and wardrobe, so don't do this unless the director asks you to or it's your own personal project. This could end up upsetting some people. Also, just be careful here, because if it's a dramatic change, you may have some problems with making it work, or actually spend a lot of time trying to make it work. Lastly, sometimes it can be a nice finish to end with adding a warm or cool color treatment to your look. So that's my suggested order of operation, but of course use any method that works for you in creating stylized looks. Here's some great tips to help you in creating stylized looks. As I already mentioned, go extreme with it. It's better to go too far and come back than it is to baby it. Babying it will limit what you might have otherwise come up with, and it's difficult to see those subtle adjustments. One way you can control the intensity of the look is to create a copy of your look, then stack it on top of the original clip, then adjust the intensity of the look by varying the opacity. It's important to keep in mind that when doing stylized looks, we're introducing replacement colors, colors that replace the original colors. Therefore, this can be destructive in nature. So we just need to keep this in mind and strike a nice balance between the original and the replacement colors. Adding the look to the second video track and dialing back the opacity is one way to do this. Moving along, I tend to use multiple layers of corrections to get the creative control I want. Layers are compound in nature and that they build on top of each other. Let me show you an example of this with one of my Luster Grade presets. Remember, as part of our order of operation workflow, our basic color correction should have already been performed. For convenience, I've named these correction layers accordingly, where the number on the correction corresponds with the number of the layer. This makes it easier. As I already mentioned, I've used multiple corrections to create these stylized looks. Many of these looks have actually been ported from my looks libraries in Apple Color and DaVinci Resolve. So if you decide to purchase the Luster Grades preset pack, you're getting basically the same looks that are in those more expensive Luster packs for the dedicated grading apps. Another strategy or tip is to use a black and white image to see the colors that you're putting into each of the different lumizones. You can also use the vector scope to assist you in creating the color scheme. And lastly, build the look while maintaining the skin tones. You can do this by either building the look in the shadows and highlights, leaving the midtones alone, or adjust the midtones and later go back and fix the skin tones with an isolation adjustment. I hope that this tutorial has been helpful. Let me finish with a really cool luster preset. I hope that this gives you some ideas. This one is one of the most complex, but it's still very easy to use. It has 4 corrections, so we'll add those corrections in corrections 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then as indicated in the name of the correction, like shadows key and undertones key, that means we need to do an isolation on that area. So we'll start with the shadows correction and pull a key on the darkest part of the image, being sure to soften it. Then we'll move on to the undertones. This is the small exposure area just above the shadows and below the midtones. So if we're thinking of the Ansel Adams zone system, that would be from maybe 2 to 4 or 3 to 4 or maybe even just 2 to 3. I know we haven't gotten into the isolation tutorial yet, but just bear with me. Okay, that's it. And just to add this as a second video layer so we can adjust the intensity of the look. I hope that showing you my luster looks here has given you some ideas, and if you're interested in them, be sure to check them out by clicking the links below. Thanks for watching.